recording.
Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Water and Power Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 14, 2021. This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. Mr. Bravich.
Good morning. As permitted under Governor Newsom's order of March 2020, all of the board meeting is being done via teleconference, and the commissioners are at remote locations. Also consistent with the governor's order, all public comment will be taken telephonically. Members of the public wishing to call in for public comment may call 213-306-3065. Again, that number is 213-306-3065. When prompted, use code 248-467-07953. Again, the code is 248-467-07953. You will have up to 2 minutes per item for a total of 5 minutes for all items you wish to speak on. When prompted, please let the board secretary know if you are speaking on a specific item or general public comment. We may announce a recess if we have technical difficulties or lose a quorum due to technical difficulties. Also, I would ask for people calling in on public comment when it is your turn to speak. If you are listening to the board proceedings on a computer, please turn that down so that we don't get feedback. I will now turn it back over to the Assistant Board Secretary for the roll call. Thank you.
President McCLAIN-HILL. President McCLAIN-HILL.
Oh, I'm sorry, present.
Vice President Reyes.
Present.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
Present.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Terrific. And I will look for it. Terrific. Thank you. I have no opening remarks for this meeting, so we can move right into general comment.
Good morning, callers. Please state your full name and the agenda item number you will be speaking on. Please be mindful that you will have 2 minutes for comment. Caller number with the area code 323 ending in 24. Please state your name and the item you're calling on.
Hi, my name is Roslyn, and I'm for general public comment.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm a resident of LA, District 10, and I'm also a member of the Repower LA Coalition. In the last board meeting, there was a verbal commitment to extend the shutoff moratorium until March of 2022. We applaud the leadership of the Board of Commissioners, but we want to see an actual board action. We've heard that members of our community are getting desperate enough to take out predatory loans to pay off their utility debt so that they can avoid disconnection. This is unacceptable, and people need clear communication from their public utility to make sound financial choices. People plan based on what they know to be true. If people are trying to pay their debt over a certain time frame, cutting the moratorium earlier will mess up their financial plans. So extending the moratorium on shutoffs is important to me because access to utilities is a human right, and it is not safe to cut off utilities for families, especially now during the pandemic. So in addition to the moratorium, our community needs to see more funds allocated for debt relief, not covered by the statewide allocation, particularly focusing on Lifeline and low-income discount participants. And thank you for your time, and I hope to see some sort of action in the future by the Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, area code 323, last 2 digits 34. Please state your name and the number, agenda item number you're calling on.
My name is Jasmine Vargas. I'm wanting to speak on general public comment. Thank you so much, Commissioners. Again, this is Jasmine Vargas. I am Senior Organizer of Food and Water Watch and a proud member of the Repower LA Coalition. I want to just bring up, like the previous caller did, the verbal commitment to extend the shutoff moratorium. until quarter 2022. You spoke and we heard last time about how important it is for community and customers to have better understanding and communications about utility shutoffs and their obligation to pay their bills. It's clear that this work is not easy. Getting $400 million funding from the state is a great victory, but we know we have to still cover about another $400 million to really pay down all of the utility debt that has been accrued by LADWP members. And I want to talk a little bit about why it's so important. Besides the fact that debt during the pandemic, during economic recession, is weighed down inequitably to low-income people of color. We also know that as we're moving into a 100% clean energy future, and we're going to need to include the communities on the front lines, not just maybe doing the jobs by joining the HYPE program, which is a gold standard in green jobs, but also in creating opportunities for electrification and energy efficiency. We're all going to need to really deal with the challenge of having equal representation and access to energy savings and electrification for the communities that are burdened with debt. And so meeting this debt, really creating a system that does not count on people going into debt or having their utility shut off, is what the kind of future that we need, one that is based on justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next caller, we have Andrea O'Laughlin. Please state the item you're calling on.
Hi, I'll be speaking on a general public comment.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea. I'm a resident of LA, and I'm also a proud member of the Repower LA Coalition, like the previous speakers. And in the last board meeting, I really do want to applaud the efforts that the Board of Commissioners did in making this verbal commitment to extend the shutoff moratorium until March of 2022. I really do applaud that leadership, but we also need to see actual board action. So we need to make sure that we continue to communicate with our community members so that way they know what is available to them. We do have community members that are getting desperate enough to take out predatory loans to pay off their utility debt so that they can avoid disconnection, and this is simply unacceptable. So I want to just really push for us to not only solidify this verbal affirmation, but I also want to encourage y'all to improve customer service and outreach, particularly focusing on communities of color who are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, to make them aware of the debt relief shutoff protections. My role is a community outreach specialist, so I am in the streets, in apartment complexes, speaking to individuals that are being directly impacted by utility debt, as well as the lack of customer service from the LADWP. And so I strongly urge you folks to step up in that regard and to step up for your customers as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller, Cameron Hurt. Please state the item you're calling on.
Hello, I'm speaking on general public comment.
Go ahead. Thank you.
All right, my name is Cameron Hurd, and I'm a resident of City Council District 11. I'm a member of the Repower LA Coalition as well. And I could echo a lot of what previous speakers have said, but I also do appreciate the verbal commitment to extend the moratorium. But as others have said, we really need to see that in solidified, concrete action from the board. And I think the stories about people pulling out loans and really messing up their financial status to pay for this really speaks to the clear and present danger, the need to actually take some sort of action that tells people very clearly what is going to be, you know, expected of them. And I agree that utilities are a human right. It's not something that should be just shut off randomly, especially when not much communication has been done around extending the moratorium. So this is just super important to me because in organizing, I've seen so many people who are worried about these things and have faced these shutoffs in the past, and it's definitely not a good feeling. So in addition to that moratorium extension, we really want to see long-term affordability measures like arrears management plans and level pay plans and increased enrollment in the discount programs. We also want improved customer service and outreach, focusing on communities of color that are disproportionately impacted by COVID so that they know their shutoff protections. And, you know, we need more funds allocated for debt relief that are not covered by the statewide allocation, particularly focusing on the Lifeline and low-income discount programs and those participants. So we really know that the board is capable of doing this, and we look forward to seeing the commitment to these goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, Gabriel Carrillo.
Good morning. My name is Gabriel Carrillo, and I'm a resident of Chatsworth. I'm calling for general public comment. I'm a member of the Repower LA Coalition. In the last board meeting, there was a verbal commitment to extend the shutoff moratorium until March 2022. We applaud the leadership but we need to see an actual board action. We have heard that members of our community are getting desperate enough to take out predatory loans to pay off their utility debt so they can avoid disconnection. This is unacceptable. People need clear communication from the public utility to make sound financial choices. People plan based on what they know to be true. If people are trying to pay their debt over a certain time frame, cutting the moratorium earlier will mess up financial plans. Extending the moratorium on shutoffs is important to me because there are so many people of color who really need all this help and debt relief. The more funds allocated to debt relief not covered by the statewide allocation, particularly focusing on Lifeline and low-income discount participants, is really needed in all of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, area code 626, last two digits, 90. Please state your name and the item you're calling on.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Wong. I'm speaking on general public comment.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany Wong. I'm a resident of Los Angeles, and I'm speaking on behalf of Scope LA and as a member of the Repower LA Coalition. Thank you for the verbal commitment to extending the shutoff moratorium until March 2022, as well as the Commissioner's support for phasing out shutoffs as a utility practice. Today I echo my fellow coalition partners in wanting to see an actual board action, as well as utility investment in proper customer outreach and education on the moratorium. This customer service infrastructure is critical to delivering the upcoming utility debt relief, as well as fostering long-term accountability and utility accountability that customers need and want to see. Our members continue to struggle with their utility bills, as well as needing access to support for understanding and addressing issues with their bills and utility infrastructure. And we wanted to we appreciate the actions that are happening around utility debt relief, but customers are still not seeing action on their own end, and really need to build the relationship between the utility and customers, and listening to the needs and priorities of customers and how they're being impacted by this pandemic. So in addition to the moratorium, we'd like to see long-term affordability measures and efforts to ensure basic access to utilities as a human right. So thank you for the time.
Okay. Thank you very much. And with that, all public comment is now closed.
Thank you. Then we will move to the report from our general manager, Mr. Adams.
Good morning. It's nice to see you today. I missed everyone 2 weeks ago at your last meeting. I was off on a camping trip, and it's good to be back with everyone today. I have a number of items to report, so I'll try to be as quick as I can. First of all, I know Nancy introduced last meeting, introduced both Mark Northup, our new Chief Information Technology Officer, and Monique Earl, the Senior Assistant General Manager of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. I know she introduced them to the board. I just want to let you know the board know that they both hit the ground running and have been very busy getting quickly acclimated with everyone and all the workings of the department. We'll hear from Mark later today in his IT update report. And Monique will have a report for the board in short working order. She's been engaged with our folks and making herself be known. Last week, she met with the water leadership team. The power leadership team is planning to get her out to the field to start to make rounds and get to know the folks in the company. She's working closely with the personnel department yesterday on some of the hiring challenges, as well as working on the early initiatives from our racial equity action plan. And so I'm very happy that they're both on board. I know you'll appreciate Mark's report today and the progress that he's making in the short time he's been here, and look for great things in the coming months. I would like to tell the board starting tomorrow begins Hispanic Heritage Month. It goes for a month until October 15th, and it's a great opportunity to honor the traditions and contributions of Hispanic and Latino Americans. Especially want to recognize the more than 4,200 employees we have here at the department who are identified as of Hispanic descent, and for their hard work and dedication to the people of Los Angeles and providing their water and power. Our Public Affairs Office and the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion are working on a number of internal and external events to celebrate this month, and so we'll be sure to have more announcements for both the board and for our employees to participate in those as they come along. We've had a couple of very nice recognitions in the last several weeks. We were recognized by the CMUA, the California Municipal Utilities Association, with a Resource Efficiency and Community Service Award for outstanding projects advancing the best practices and innovative ideas in water and power industry. We took top honors in what's called the Community Service Programs category for our La Cret's Innovation Campus and for the continued commitment to sustainability and LA's green economy. And then we were pleasantly surprised, and I say surprised only because this came completely as a out of the blue for us. We received an award from Forbes a week or so ago, announced that they had done a nationwide survey of employers. Tens of thousands of American workers were interviewed, and they found over 1,300 companies throughout the country who they recognized as the best employer. And we were ranked as the number 52 best employer in the state of California. And that list just came out at the end of August, and so it was a great recognition. The information was done based on survey responses having to do with safety, work environment, competitiveness, compensation, opportunities for advancement, and openness to telecommuting. So it's a great recognition for us, and we're pleased to have been recognized as one of the top employers in the state. In COVID area, we continue with our COVID messaging. I had another video out at the end of last week reminding employees about COVID safety, about opportunities to get vaccinations, about what we stand at work at the Water and Power in terms of continued telecommuting at this point, for the foreseeable future, as we're doing currently with our office staff, because of the Delta variant, the number of cases that we're seeing, and a reminder for folks to be careful over the holidays, particularly as summer was coming to a close. And so we have had, numbers that we've seen in our environment very similar to society around us. Our incidences of COVID are coming down, as we see in the surrounding communities, but we still remain very vigilant and particularly careful. All of our policies remain in place at this time. And again, our plan is to continue telecommuting for the foreseeable future while we work on what our next plans will be and see where COVID takes us. We are continuing to collect information from employees right now on their vaccination status. We've had close to 1,000 employees respond to a survey, in addition to the nearly half of all of our employees that we already knew about their status, who have been through vaccine clinics, to get a good read of where we are as a company. We had our 5th vaccine event last Thursday. We've had almost 500 people go through the 5 vaccine events here at the JFB, and continue to offer those out to make sure that our employees and their families have a chance to get a vaccine if they're interested, and continue to promote vaccinations for all of our employees. Last week, we had 2 energy flex alerts. We helped the state in pushing out that message, even though our system was sound here. We do continue during the above normal temperatures to monitor our system very closely. We have extra crews on hand for emergency repairs. We have not had any substantial issues, and certainly have not had any power shortages in the city of Los Angeles. We continue to remain as a resource for the state of California with excess energy. And last Saturday, we also brought in additional crews to help harden our system by replacing older transformers and making some other improvements in areas that we were concerned about. So we're very proud of how the power system has performed during this continued heat. It's been tough on the state as overall. We continue to try to be a resource to the rest of the state, while at the same time having great success in the city here in Los Angeles. On September 1st, President McCLAIN-HILL and I participated in a press conference with City Council following a motion that followed up on the mayor's direction to provide 100% carbon-free power in the city of Los Angeles by 2035. And so this basically echoed what the mayor had talked about in his State of the City address. It's consistent and even leverages further the Green New Deal ideas by making it official from the council standpoint that this is the direction that the city's going, that we are going to embrace the results of the LA 100 study and really put the city on a path forward to have clean energy within the next decade and a half. And so we're looking forward to that. We have a lot of projects and plans in place that I know the board will get regular updates on that are putting us in the direction to be a leader in achieving clean energy by the goal of 2035. In the past few meetings, I know Andy Kindle has mentioned the International Lineman's Rodeo. We've not had a rodeo for the last 2 years because of the COVID pandemic. We're very excited that we're going to go attend the first international rodeo this coming year. It's going to be in, I believe it's in October. It's going to be October in Kansas. We'll be sending a crew of 10 people as two journey level teams and 4 apprentices for individual competition. The department has fared very well in this competition. It's a great morale builder and a recognition of our skills with our crafts folks in the electric industry. And I know Andy's extended an invitation to the board. If anyone is interested in attending, you're more than welcome to go and to support our teams. This is a great chance for the department to show off its skills, and we typically come home with awards from these events. And we are also looking forward to in the future hosting this event here in Los Angeles. A few brief notes on the Eastern Sierra. Tomorrow we have a job fair in the Owens Valley. It'll be the 3rd virtual job fair that we've held there. We had nearly 100 people attend the last one, looking for folks who live in the Owens Valley and would like to become department employees, and opportunities for them to become employees and stay in the area that they live. And so this is an important job fair. It's an important outreach to the community. Our human resources team, as well as our public affairs team, will be conducting this, and we're hoping for a great outcome tomorrow at that job fair. On October 16th, we'll co-host a cleanup on the Upper Owens River in Mono County. We had a very similar event last fall. It was very successful. It was in partnership with the Eastern Sierra Interpretive Association and other local groups, and we did a volunteer trash cleanup along the Owens River. And this was great because it helped rid the area from trash that might have been left behind from high fishing and recreation months during the summertime. And so Joe Ramallo has more information that we'll push out in case anyone is interested in visiting the Eastern Sierra during that time. And lastly, in the Eastern Sierra, I wanted to mention that a number of months ago, I think it was in the late spring, I believe, the board approved our CEQA document associated with our application for an amended water rights license for our Mono Basin diversions. This is based on the 2013 settlement agreement that we reached with Mono Lake Committee, Caltrat, and the State Department of Fish and Wildlife. And subsequent environmental studies that we did at the urging of the State Water Resources Control Board all came together with that settlement agreement to make a new amended water rights license. We do anticipate receiving the amended license in the next few weeks or so. and we are prepared to move forward with the spillway modifications in order to deliver the new flow regime that are required during the wet and extremely wet years under the new license terms. I want to let the board know we did submit comments to the draft license. The comments were directed at some of the language from the State Water Resources Control Board. Did raise some concerns amongst the settling parties, but I wanted to assure the board nothing in our comments was directed toward any of the commitments that we made in the settlement agreement, nor was it meant to signal any change in our commitment to the settling parties to move forward with the Grant Lake modification project. So that project is on track. Our commitments are on track, and we are working with state staff on the final license language. So that was a lot in a very quick nutshell. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Marty. Are there any questions from either of the commissioners present?
I do have one question. Marty, for Owens Valley, for the job fair, have we made attempts to conduct the exams there in order for the people who are actually living there to be able to take civil service exams and not go for a 5-hour trip to the city of Los Angeles to take exams?
Yes, that's a great question. We are working on that, and I don't know if Shannon wants to, or if is online to answer a little more, but we actually have conducted tests up there. We're working on that again. The other thing we're also working on is the ability for people to get hired up there for classes, not only take a test, but actually hired directly into a job up there, because one of the issues we have is people may want to work there. They have to get a job. They may have to take a job in Los Angeles with the hope of getting back up there. So we're looking for not just the testing, but also be able to offer jobs locally to local individuals. Shannon, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, real quick. Marty's correct. We have been having exams administered up in the Owens Valley. And with the personnel department doing most of their exams online now anyways, anyone in the Owens Valley can participate in the exam process. The objective for our fairs in general has been to make sure that they have information as to when these exams are going to be administered so that they can go ahead and sign up. So as Marty stated, we can actually hire people who actually live out there, because we do have challenges from time to time when people accept jobs from the LA Basin, go up there and decide, it's too cold during the winter, I want to come back home. And then we still have to, look to find individuals who can take those positions on a more regular basis. So yes, everything that Marty said is correct.
Yeah, and we're working to make it more direct so we can really have opportunities for local folks to stay local. So that's our goal, and we're working very closely with the personnel department on that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Hearing nothing. Thank you. Thank you, Marty. I look forward to continuing our work with the folks, with the settlement parties up in the Eastern Sierra. So look forward to that. If we could, at this time, I have no motions for future consideration. So we'll move to the comments from the ratepayer advocate on agendized items. Dr. Pickle, are there comments that you'd like to provide at this time?
No comments at this time. I may have brief comments on the management reports and others if questions arise.
Terrific, thank you. Is there anything from the neighborhood councils, Jennifer?
No community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood council on today's agenda items.
Terrific, thank you. That then moves us to consideration of items for recommended for approval. So we have 2 items that have been pulled special for discussion. That's items 7 and 14. Are there any other items that commissioners would like to have pulled? Seeing none or hearing none, thank you.
Yeah, I want to just chime in. I have none, but I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty, so I'm going to get off video and hope that I'm able to fix it. But I definitely can hear you guys.
Okay, terrific. And if you have any further difficulty, just I'll look, if you disappear or need some time to go off and come back on, just let us know. We can take a brief break. Okay, then we will move or I need a motion for the remaining board items. That would be items 1 through 6 and items 8 through 13. Is there a board motion?
I move to approve items 1 through 6 and items 8 through 13.
I'll second. Would you call the roll, please?
President McCLAIN-HILL,
Aye.
Vice President Reyes,
Aye.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady, Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
We may have lost her.
She is attempting to log on at this time.
Okay, we
If we
will
could
hold.
stand by. Okay. Commissioner NEEMAN Brady. Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
At this point, why don't we take a 5-minute recess while we seek to reconnect with Commissioner NEEMAN Brady. I assume we do not have a quorum at this time, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, so actually, let's make it 10 minutes. It's 10:35. Joe, is there something that we need to do in order to recess until 10:45?
No, other than to say we are in recess until 10:45.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We are recording now. Thank you. And I'd like to take roll, please.
Thank
President
you.
McCLAIN-HILL.
Present.
Vice President Reyes.
Present.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. When we left our meeting, Joe, do we just resume? I take it there's no need for additional legal blessing?
Correct, Commissioner. The motion was made, the motion was seconded, so now we are just on the roll call.
Okay, terrific. We left our meeting with a motion before us for approval of board items 1 through 6 and 8 through 13. Would you please take the roll?
President McCLAIN-HILL.
Aye.
Vice President Reyes.
Aye.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
Aye.
Thank you.
Terrific. Those items passed, and we'll move to management reports. And we will be hearing from our new information technology officer. Welcome to your first presentation at a board meeting. Looking forward to the quarterly information technology modernization report.
Good morning, Madam Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Great, great. So I'm really excited to be here. This is day 21, business day wise. So still kind of, feeding from the fire hose a little bit. So, but I wanted to just share with you that I've been, as Marty kind of mentioned, immersing myself in the inner workings of IT, both with projects that are in flight, programs that are in flight as well, and the inner workings as well as the other organizations. And this presentation, it will be in the same format that Louis Carr, my predecessor, who I've been working with and transitioning over the last couple of weeks in meetings, is in the same format. So for your ease of understanding that you're familiar with. And I will hold and caveat it that this may change in the near future for the next one. And I will obviously work with you to make sure that it meets the needs of the commission as for presentation purposes. In the last month, just to let you know, I've met an incredibly talented IT team that any CTO could be proud of. They're very dedicated. I'm impressed with the hard work. And that'll show in this presentation some of the huge accomplishments they've made. Many of you probably are aware, but maybe the general public is not. Additionally, I have been working with the water and power groups, meeting them individually on the business side, as well as procurement, real estate, records management, the IBEW Local 18. I've met with them already. And I plan on meeting with many, many more, obviously, but just in 4 weeks, I've accomplished a lot. So, but this tour of duty is continuing, and well, all those groups will eventually meet me, and they'll find out how energetic I am about transforming and using technology to help them in their day-to-day jobs. So with that, could we go to the next slide, please? Here is just a quick overview, as you had pre-read, just the topics that will be discussed in my short presentation here. Next slide, please. Personnel and hiring. Well, LADWP is no different than any other utility I have worked with in my past, nor any other industry out there right now. We are challenged with hiring talented individuals and promoting individuals in the right positions. As you can see, we're are significantly in a deficit here with vacant positions. There are roughly about 108 vacancies, and this is what we're really focused on. Coming in the last couple of weeks, I've worked with the team, and they are really dedicated to hiring the right individuals in the positions and promoting within and getting those filled. The interesting thing is, the strategy has been put in place by my predecessor and the team that we're going to focus on the overall hiring and overfill of entry-level positions so that we can build a repository of individuals that can be promoted and moved into higher positions through education and learning the job and their motivations to inspire and do better for themselves. This last week, I just received education from my team on how the process works for hiring individuals and how they get promoted and how the different positions are working. In addition to that, I asked for a report on the number of individuals that would be eligible for retirement within the IT division. And that's a staggering number, unfortunately, and it's something that we're really going to be focused on. And I've just talked to my team today about this, but even last week about succession planning, employee education, training, knowledge transfer, documentation of processes to ensure that we're in a good spot for those who do have, worked the years and deserve that time of that next phase in their life of retirement. But we want to make sure that we instill the resiliency in the organization and we don't lose that institutional knowledge that they have instilled in themselves, but that we pass it on to others. So we are going to work this and continue to focus on this hiring stuff going forward. And it's just going to say it's going to be a challenge, but we really are all hands on right now. We are focused on it and we've been talking about it extensively. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. The IT leadership training. Let me talk about this. You probably will recall that Lewis and the teams put together a leadership training program. Well, I was fortunate enough to inherit it, and I actually kicked off the pilot with my introduction from the team just August 25th, if I recall correctly. And it was a great thing, and this pilot program has received really incredible feedback and everything else. Right now, this is focused on supervisors and management personnel. And we have, believe it is 3 other sessions that will be held with everyone in the IT division. Now, this is an investment in the employee development, right? And this is going to help them grow in certain areas. You'll see some of the topics down there: project management, managing teams, networking, building relationships. These are just some of the topics that would be discussed in this training session that Accenture is running for us. But some of them are experts in those areas and everything else, but other areas they might be a little bit weaker in. And I'm a firm believer in that education is very important for IT. We do not want to become stagnant. Every day we need to learn. That includes me about these things, and there's areas that we can improve on. And I even had this discussion with the IBEW Local 18 about how I'm going to be looking at how we can look at individuals and how they can improve their education. Marty and I even discussed this in some of our meetings, how he is very pro-education and very supportive of my thoughts and ideas. So it was great to hear that, and that Marty's, backing me up on that. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is where I'm going to start to update and provide you some really positive news about some of our projects and everything else. We're going to start with the programs under security infrastructure right now. You'll see here that there's basically 2 projects that have already completed. Now, I'm uncertain. Some of these may have been in the last report, so some of this might be old news to you, but what you see there is IDM, which is our identity management solution with Okta has been implemented, and we enhanced security, email security has been implemented as well. As you know, cybersecurity is so important, obviously, to any utility. We are ranked in the top 3 of industries to be attacked by, I'll call them hacktivists, individuals that might believe in activities like they're anti-coal or anything like that. State-run organizations such as maybe Iran, China, or Russia, or even just individuals that are out for making money. I'll just call those criminals that would want to put ransomware on your systems and just extract like Bitcoins and everything else as payment. So security is my mantra. I've come from a background using security and being part of a security leader for the state of Louisiana as well as utilities. And this is basically Stephen Kwok and I are basically hand in hand, step in step forward looking at this as security by design going forward for all these different projects. You'll see some other projects in here that are underway. There's GRC, that's governance, risk, and compliance, well underway. We have the focus on the cloud, or the Center of Excellence, underway as well. The SOC enhancements, this is underway as well. SOC enhancements is the Security Operations Center, which runs 24/7, 365. This is basically watching the bad guys to make sure that nothing happens to our systems and intrusions. And then we have intrusion protection system, basically a prevention system, I apologize, that's also being implemented. These are just a few of the high level programs and projects that are underway from a security standpoint. And we're having discussions with other groups, power and water, about OT systems. That stands for operational technology. These are the systems that typically never had any kind of connection to IT, but they call it the convergence of IT and OT. It is a step that's happening where basically these systems run as one, and basically they need to be monitored and managed.
Just a quick question.
Absolutely.
Hiring for a new Cloud Center of Excellence. Can you just quickly tell me what that is? I mean, is this part of a migration strategy into the cloud? I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, so I'm just interested in what that piece offers.
So, yeah, and I apologize. I probably am not the best person. This is going to come from intelligence that was given to me in 4 weeks being here. But basically what we're looking at is creating a center by which we will start looking at putting applications into the cloud. This center of excellence is to ensure that we have the right constructs, methodologies, and performance measurements to analyze and validate that if we were to look for systems to be put into the cloud, that they're put in there securely, they're resilient, and they're protected. The information of the data is encrypted both at rest as well as in transit, meaning being sent between systems, to ensure that basically nothing is hurt from the group or compromise the enterprise.
And then can you just tell me, just based on your previous experience, where DWP stacks in terms of cloud-based services versus not? Is this, again, industries outside of the department?
No, certainly, yes. Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, Commissioner.
Deal with very highly secure and sensitive information are still cloud-based. And this has, again, been an area of interest here. So I'm just curious as to your perspective about that and where the department lines up, at least as you understand it, given your less than 30 days on the job.
Yeah, no, thank you. Excellent question, Madam Commissioner. It's interesting, right? Utilities have been very, I'll just say, resistant to moving to things to the cloud, right? Yes. And rightfully so. When things went to the cloud initially, we heard about many breaches and everything associated with them, or that the security wasn't there, or they were just, cutting edge stuff, and people, were harmed. Organizations were compromised and everything else. Today, my background has allowed me to see different ways to really put things into the cloud securely, such as in organizations like FedRAMP or other very highly regulated and monitored environments. I'll call them topologies that the organization can work in. Utilities are in a different levels of maturity as to adopting cloud. I would say that we are in the genesis of adopting a version of going to the cloud. And I don't think that's a bad thing, to be honest with you. I would rather be the person stepping into the cloud after others have gone out there and learned mistakes and have corrected themselves from. I don't want to be on the bleeding edge of the cloud, but I am a firm believer that the cloud is the way that we will be going in the future. And it can be done securely and for most systems out there. Now, there is always the argument that some systems need to be on-prem, which means on-premise within our own environment. And those are even being questioned today. For example, I was working with IBM on adopting a process by which we could put our control systems for NERC SIP into the cloud. We're actually working with utilities that we're going to put that very, I'll say, complicated and very vital system into the cloud and run the utilities grid from the cloud. Now, that's about as much information I can share on the call here regarding that, but there is a move to that. But that is a little bit more on the bleeding edge side. I think we should wait a few years to make sure that everything is secure before we were to step into something like that. But you're absolutely right. This is something that we will grow into, and it will grow fast. Once we set up this center of excellence, there will be a method and by which we will ensure the resiliency, the security of our data, our customers' information, as well as the systems, both for water and power, to that we will not be compromised in any way going forward with those.
I'll also be interested in understanding more about your comment with respect to IT and OT becoming more blended. It's always been, well, it's been my understanding that there is risk associated with those two systems interacting in a particular way, and that one of the hardwired strengths of the organization or firewalls is the separation of the regular IT from the operating systems. That's one of the ways in which people have calmed me down. So I'll be interested in understanding more about how these things come together and interact as we move forward.
Madam Commissioner, I will be glad to speak to you about that in greater detail, but you are absolutely correct. There is that air gap. There's the separation of duties between OT and IT, especially critical SCADA information versus, I will call it, corporate data. We do not want those wires crossed, so to speak. It is imperative that you do that. I will tell you, though, that in every utility I've ever been, there has been where they said there was air gaps. We found ways to get to, map those air gaps. So we have to be very cautious. It's an assessment that needs to be done by network and security and everything else, and both sides and application owners, to ensure that that is always there and that our security is resilient. But it is a very interesting topic to talk about. And we're actually attending an operational meeting at Deloitte's labs in the next coming weeks, where water and power representatives, along with IT security and myself, will be discussing these OT, IoT devices, IoT meaning Internet of Things, just so everybody understands, devices and how they would be managed. So,
okay, thank you.
Excellent.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, fantastic questions, rightfully so, no problem. And please, to the other commissioners, please don't hesitate to interrupt if you have any questions. And I hope I'll be able to answer. And if I can't, I will get back to you. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Here's some additional projects that are underway. And I'll say again, more positive news. You may already have heard that the Energy Imbalance Market project has been completed. This was under REYES organization. And so great progress there. That was completed earlier. I'm not sure, it may have been presented previously. We have another project that is probably near and dear to some of you, the Commissioner Chambers Technology. That's government prime gov. I'm sorry, I think I swapped the words wrong. And that's underway, and that we have as yellow. Now that I've heard is more green now, because when this deck was put together, it was like one of the first weeks I was here, and there was a little bit of concerns and everything else, but as we heard, this should be no problem. We're looking at things finishing out in October, November timeframe. SharePoint, again, at a high level, this is actually an excellent project. This is called a rationalization project, as I would call it. We are rationalizing multiple SharePoint environments into one. We are consolidating and saving the company money and the enterprise money. We are looking at putting the intranet records and everything into our current system under SharePoint, and this project is on schedule and everything else for February of 2022. Finally, on this particular page, there's the distribution automation. Many of you probably understand what those is, but this is the smart grid, down the line circuit automation of different areas, putting controllers and devices on there to measure and everything else. This is under REYES group as well. This is a multi-year project. I am only just beginning to get my fingers into this to make sure I'm understanding it, but from my discussing this with my team today, this is moving along well. There are some hiccups sometimes with resources, which we often run into, that the demand for things to be done and everything else, but that will be managed going forward. And that's on both sides. I believe that's on the power side as well as the IT side. And that's just a normal day challenge that project managers and us get involved with to make sure they're handling. If we could go to the next slide, please. More good news, more stuff being completed, some more great accomplishments by my hardworking teams that I've inherited. We had the CCNB upgrade completed, that was previously done, and then also the CRM upgrade pre-planning phase was just completed as well. There are some other things on here that we should make note of. There is an error on this page. If you look at the second row under level pay non-billed budget, it says April 2021 as the target end. That was a typo on my mistake. It should be April 2022. Otherwise, that would be in very much a red color for being very late. So, but we wanted to provide that update to you. I apologize about that mistake. I did not catch it in my QA. So my apologies there, but that is on schedule. I spoke to the team this morning about this. No issues there at this point in time.
I'm sorry, it's scheduled for 2022?
Yeah, that goes live. Target end date is April of 2022, not 2021.
We'll need to discuss.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so that was my understanding. So I thought that was a mistake when I was looking at it again today. So we can circle back with you afterwards, or we can discuss later on. I might not be the perfect expert on this. We may have to pull in additional individuals that have better understanding if there's a greater discussion.
And are we caught up with the versioning of the CCB upgrade?
We are. I believe we are only what we call in the industry N-1. I will validate that, meaning that we are one version back. There's another version that has just recently come out that we can upgrade to. Speaking to my team lead on that, Terry, he said that he's in favor of moving forward and upgrading it to the next version. That upgrade obviously had not been done in quite some time, so it was very difficult to do. He got it upgraded to the version. There was another version, new version that just was released, and we can upgrade to that so that we can keep current, as we would say in the industry, and we would not be N-1. So we are in very good shape there, and that is going to be planned.
Yeah, one of my concerns, and when you listed the groups that you'd met with, what was missing from that group, from the groups, was customer services division. And you'll note on our letterhead and lots of other places, it says customer first. And yet the technology necessary to support the actual delivery of exemplary customer service is well behind just about everything. And a number of the items on this list relative to CSD have been in discussion and have been, committed to and promised for some time. And so, I see dates as late as September. I guess that should also be 2022 for website, because it says 2021.
No, excuse me, Madam Commissioner, that is actually correct. Those are the requirements. So those are, we went through, actually, George Rafael and I had a meeting with Gartner, who is actually building those out.
Then let me ask a different question, because requirements isn't a rebuild. So I'm looking for things like, you're telling me that level pay, we're looking at April of 2022, which is a little later than we actually need it. The website rebuild requirement, so I will be curious as to when, what that means from the perspective of actually delivering a modern, more easily utilized website. And you may or may not know that we have these significant workarounds. So we have all of these, sort of off platforms, because we're trying to work around the lack of a site that's usable. And I'm not clear to the upgrade. So those are the two things that I'm very interested in understanding, both the level pay and website. And while they seem to be incredibly low tech, not that important relative to some of the other conversations that we would have about, cybersecurity or SCADA systems or other technology. The fact of the matter is the customer service touch is, as critical as everything else that we do. And we have had a woefully inadequate platform for managing our customers and our customer relationships for some time. So I just want to say that as we move forward, focus on how we support customer service and FSO is a very, very, very high priority.
Actually, point taken. I will write that down. I will get back to you when I circle back with the team and provide you an update outside of this meeting about those two topics for you. And absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more about the customer focus being essential. Is the number one thing. Absolutely. So point taken. I will I'll give you an update after this. I promise you that, probably within a day or two after I speak with the teams. All right, let's move on to the next slide if you wouldn't mind.
Mm-hmm.
This particular one, we're getting very close to the end here for updates on projects. This is the infrastructure programs. Very complicated names here, NSX-T, Phase 2, Phase 3. These are VMware systems that is the vendor to basically simplify the way we manage our disaster recovery and our environments. They're moving forward very well and effectively. I've talked to the team again today just to validate that. But the group is making huge progress. As well as the NetApp expansion, this one is for our on-prem solutions, managing our data services. And basically, this is around storage, protection, and the management of it. Each one of these, again, are on schedule, and even the last one, which I get to in just a moment, tell you about, there is some part of it already completed. The Horizon expansion, this is a unique system which enables us to virtualize desktops anywhere where basically you want to be. This is a growing trend in all utilities and everything else, and this one also is on track going forward. Now, the really great news here is the mainframe refresh. Our group successfully, over the Labor Day weekend, was able to migrate our CPU from Z13 to Z15. Now, that is a fancy name for the IBM version of the mainframe. And that was a successful weekend. That was done over Labor Day. The team was, so that should be in the completed status. And then the last part there, scheduled for October 3rd, is our migrating the storage. And the positive things about migrating our storage is that this is going to save us money. So we're going to be in a great standard point there. This will also be done over a weekend. And I apologize, there's one other point I would like to make about this upgrade to the new Z platform, is that it put into a cybersecurity crypto card. And this is a neat tool that allows us to create cyber resiliency. And it actually protects our mainframe data from ransomware, malware, and other things. So these are great upgrades that needed to be done. It took the team hard work, sweat and tears to coordinate and get all these done, but they did an excellent job, and so far everything's looking great. So great kudos to those teams out there. And then if we could go to the next page, please. We're going to talk about the large transformational program that's underway under the leadership of Marty, that basically took on this challenge of upgrading our ERP system and moving us forward into what I'll call the 21st century. This is a three-phase project under a major program of our enterprise refresh. And phase 1 is dealing with Evalua, which will eventually replace our ERSP AGMA tool. This is underway right now. I'm working very closely with Aaron Henning's team, as well as the IT team, Ivalua, and AGMA. The teams are working quite closely together. This is a very complicated phase. There's a lot of legacy applications that need to be integrated with, and we need to ensure that this is done properly. So right now, we're really scrutinizing the work that needs to be done and what we call the interfaces between the systems, between the groups. And by mid-October, we will have a complete understanding of when this will be completed. Our target date is January. That may, I'm just going to be transparent with you, may be in jeopardy a little bit. But we're doing our due diligence to see if that will be in jeopardy. But I'm giving you a heads up that we're looking at it very closely from a management perspective, as well as our vendors, to ensure that we are doing the right thing and having everything in place. Phase 2, which is the HR and payroll phase, is in green status, is doing very well. The planning phase is underway and quickly approaching its conclusion. And then phase 3, which is our financials, we're performing the discovery of the chart of accounts. This is the meat and structure of the skeletal system of the financials, the chart of accounts. They call it the COA often as a short version of it, but that has just started and underway and moving very well. And right now, one thing I do want to mention, there has been a risk raised. This is for total transparency that, you know, there's a resource issue as with all these individuals, and some of our subject matter experts are being stretched a little bit into, they might be the only ones that understand one particular item, and then they're in the next meeting because they're the only ones that understand another. We as a management team are working on that. I just want to let you know about this, trying to manage that. And also, again, this gets into that point I brought up before about succession planning, is the knowledge of transfer or knowledge transfer between the people so that we can move that institutional knowledge from one person to another. So a lot of documentation and a lot of work will be put into that in the next couple, probably weeks and months for sure. If we can move on to the next page, this is just a little bit more about our large transformational project. This gives, you know, at a high level, talks to about what each phase is doing. This is for your information only. I'm not going to read through this because you probably have already read this and are very versed. Next slide, please. This is a visual. You'll have 2 slides here that kind of visualizes and shows you a little bit better what it looks like for the implementation. This helps you kind of see like that there are different sections to this implementation. There are certain things that are testing, design, build, rollout, and deploy. So these are the different phases. And if we wouldn't mind going to the next slide, this shows phase 2 and 3 from a visual perspective. And I'm just coming to the conclusion of my presentation. If we go to the next slide, we'd like to share metrics on the cybersecurity and the effects that are basically targeting us, right? So what you'll see here are some statistics that were provided by Stephen Kwok to me from his team, showing what's happening in our environments and what we're capturing and what we're identifying. There are every day, as I mentioned, we're a target as an industry. You know, the individuals out there that are against the U.S. or against our industry like to target us, and we have to keep our guard up 100% of the time. This next month, as we mentioned, is Cybersecurity Month. We will be doing some education and training for individuals to remind them of our importance, as we are a link to protecting the company. Every single individual in our organization it's important to understand how phishing attacks occur, how ransomware occurs, how malware gets into our systems. But this is just these are some just current statistics to show you as to what's happening in our things and what we're blocking and what we're preventing from happening to our environment. And then the last page, if you don't mind moving to, is our service desk performance metrics. One more slide, please. Thank you. And this is our service desk who does an incredible job of maintaining everybody up, and the people that come back from Labor Day when they forget their password, it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't logged in 3 days. What is it again? Or I've typed it in too many times and blocked myself out. But, you know, the different things that occur. But the statistics here and looking at the service desk and comparing it to other industry, other utilities in this industry, these numbers are excellent, actually, believe it or not. Compared to other utilities I've been at and seen, this is actually a very good statistics as to how we resolve. You'll see that the new incidents and closed incidents are nearly equal, and then there's only a few open incidents that have been, you know, not resolved. So with that, I will open it up. Well, there is closing. I forgot there is one more slide basically saying, hey, yes, we're going to do a lot more things, right? And but I just want to leave it with this. I am now part of this team. I'm ingrained. I am very fortunate to have a very intelligent, smart team working underneath me, and I expect that we are going to do great things going forward. I'm going to be an extension of IT, an ambassador to the business to basically see how I can help the business better do their jobs, help them through difficult times of any kind of issues with their systems, and also promote new technologies to them and provide them new ways of doing things. The goal is obviously to keep the company safe, customer one, as you mentioned, which I forgot to say in the beginning. Also focus on operational resiliency and support of maintaining systems up and running 100% of the time, ensuring that nothing happens, being a constant vigilant guard against potential attacks, cyber threats, and everything else. So you'll see in the next probably update from the IT organization, a more transformational view of what I envision and what we are proposing to move forward to with roadmaps and understandings of what that would mean to the company from an enterprise perspective, as well as to the individuals and the customers to improve their ability to gather information, understand things, also to ensure the resiliency that water and power are constantly there. So I'll open it up for any questions from the Madam Commissioners.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'd like to note the presence of Commissioner Berard Hopkins and also Commissioner Lair. So we have a full board present at this point. Are there any questions from any commissioner? Any comments from Dr. Pickle? All right, I'd just like to circle back to one thing, and this is actually the very first topic that you identified in your presentation, that of hiring. I think you have more than 100 vacancies in IT, and hiring continues to be a struggle. I am very interested in understanding what the strategies are associated with filling these vacancies. If we've got 610 funded positions, and I assume if we're 108 down, so we're like 502 people working. That's not a negligible number of vacancies in IT. We have, and Marty, Shannon, one of you are going to probably have to step up in this context, because I doubt that our new chief is really gotten his arms fully around this, but we've had persistent issues around HR. We've had extensive conversations about how this gets done. We've looked at all the personnel charts. I know that Commissioner NEEMAN BRADY, had requested, and we had, both presentations from personnel and presentations internal. But this is not a situation that can persist. We can't have ambitious goals and keep talking about what we're going to achieve without being able to squarely deal with issues like hiring, knowledge transfer, succession planning, with all of the other things that laid out. The linchpin of that is your personnel. So I'm very curious as to what it is that we're going to do that's different than what we have been doing, that continues to keep us in this sort of state of under-resourced from a people perspective.
Madam Commissioner, that's a great question, and I'm going to tell you that I am just beginning to understand this last week.
Which is why I've asked Marty and Shannon to speak up now. They have not been here. They've been here for many years.
Yeah. I'll be happy to answer, and Shannon may be able to chime in. So one of the key things, a couple things. So first of all, we have been growing the number of positions in the IT area. So we have been adding positions, but we need to be doing.
I was going to say we add positions, we don't add people.
Exactly.
So I've finally gotten the distinction, yes. And am no longer counting positions. I now want to count bodies.
Right. So one of the things that Mark and his team, as you mentioned at the very bottom of the slide, is this concept of overfilling in the entry level positions, because as you're aware, when we have positions scattered through the organization.
We talked about this, and in fact, Lewis talked about that the last time he was here, and we still have, as I understand it, we're still in a situation where we are, with retirements and promotions, etc., we still have these, we will have this huge gap unless we do more than that and something different. And I also believe that we've got to be looking not only at the entry level and growing up, but also given the level of attrition or retirement, we've also got to be working from the top down. So we're not going to be able to just fill this entry level growing up. And I'm really pleased to know that the professional development work that had been, conceived of, that went well and had a good kickoff, and that Mark is enthusiastic about that. But this is a very serious issue, and it's not just in IT, it's in power and other parts of the organization. But as it relates to IT, which is mission critical, we've been first waiting for a leader. We now have that, a new leadership. So how are we going to deal with what is a critical deficiency in terms of staff?
So, the plan they have now is to tackle kind of mass hiring to bring more people into the organization. I know Shannon might be able to elaborate that we've been working on other avenues for testing and interviewing, such as using on-campus interviews for graduates, like we do for engineering classifications for some of these classes, so we can access candidates more quickly without going through a separate civil service testing process. That involves working with the other city departments because it is a list that everybody uses. But we're trying to access candidates as quickly as we can. It's a competitive area, so we want to get them coming out of school as much as possible for people that are new in the industry. And then again, as Mark said, try to push more goal of hiring packages through. That's a process issue in terms of administrative staff and IT, working with those in human resources to get packages through and onboard people as quickly as possible. And so it's a concerted effort that Mark and his team are working on. It does take everyone, because it's not just putting out packages for asking people to come on board, but it's hiring panels, it's interview panels. All the people who are looking for employees have a role in getting those people on board and making that a priority to do that, and people setting the time aside to make that a priority is one of those critical factors. But the concept of overhiring people, because we know we'll have continued vacancies, having that larger pool of people coming into the organization, I think is critical to get ahead. Otherwise, we're always playing a kind of a trailing game. Shannon, do you want to add anything to this concept of what we're doing in these positions?
Yeah, unfortunately, Commissioner McCLAIN-HILL is correct. We have to start at the top and start overfilling positions at the top and go all the way down. Because, I think the concern has been over the years with Lewis and others that they were going to actually have more positions filled than they had bodies. And I kept telling them that's never going to be a concern, because with the level of attrition that's always occurring in ITS and in the department, with people retiring, with just things people promoting, you're never going to be in a situation where you're going to be, you have too many positions. You're just not, or too many bodies in those positions, I should say. I think Mark's strategy going forward is something that we've been talking about for years, unfortunately, which is you have to start overhiring in all levels in the organization. You're gonna, I mean, you've asked for the right documentation, Mark, in that you want to see who's going to be eligible to retire in the next couple of years. And you can pretty much count on that people are going to retire. So that being said, you need to move forward in filling as many positions as you can on a regular basis. HR and IT worked on streamlining the hiring process by coming up with a new online tool that allows divisions throughout the department to start doing their hiring online. So no more bringing your hiring packages to HR in those big brown binders anymore. Everything's going to be done electronically and can be done literally at a touch of a button. And even with the directors now, they don't have to sign all those documents. Everything's going to come to you through an email. You'll sign off on it, goes directly to HR. They review the package, it's done. So, my recommendation, Mark, and we will work closely with you on this, is to just identify exactly which job classifications you need filled and start certifying, start doing your internal bids to get that done so that you can get the layers hired within your organization such that at some point, hopefully in the next couple of months, you're not going to have 108 vacancies. Maybe you have 10. So
thank you, Shannon. Thank you. Thank you, Marty.
Well, what I will tell you is that this is something that I do want to track. So independently, because again, everything else is pie in the sky if we don't have the actual human capital to get it done. So, even in advance or as part of, just depending on how our calendar flows, the next quarterly report, I do want a very specific focus on the personnel side of this. We're already, it's crazy. Our fiscal year began in July and it's already mid-September. You're gonna get through 6 months without having scaled up to funded positions.
The other comment I'm going to make, Commissioner McCLAIN-HILL, is I don't believe, and we'll go back and double check with Mark and his staff, but I don't believe he's waiting for any civil service exams to be conducted. The lists are there. It's just a matter of certifying the list, going through the bid process, getting those positions filled in such a way so that they can get to the list and they can start hiring. But if there are exams that we need to request, we will do that immediately for him. But, last time I checked with, Michael and his group, it wasn't for lack of eligible lists. It just was, they needed to get the priority to start hiring.
Okay, well, Marty, I heard Mark graciously credit your leadership on the enterprise resource system, or whatever that acronym is, which was terrific. When he said it, I thought, nobody, that's on you. Marty's only going to take that as his thing once it's launched and successful. Until then, that's on you. Successful. However, as it relates to making sure that this department is appropriately staffed and that we have dealt with succession and hiring and things of that nature, I do think that that is something that is going to require a great deal more attention and oversight at your level, Marty, because right now, not only in IT, but in power, in real estate, we've got a number of areas where, even, the thing that's near and dear to my heart, the restack of this building. And we've got a number of things that are on the table as things that we intend to achieve that we don't have the people, frankly, to achieve. And that seems like such a contradiction, or so ironic in in an environment where We are credited as one of the top, 50 employers in the state, largely, I think, due to the significant benefits and salary and compensation and the overall work, satisfaction that employees have here. So the inability to staff the department in positions that are not just exist, but positions that are funded is something that we do have to be able to get beyond, and to get beyond in a very concentrated way. And the succession planning and knowledge transfer, just based on what's occurring in the context of general of the AGM attrition that we're seeing, or those retirements. I mean, you're having difficulty letting go. I think that if you start to look at that across the organization, it's really quite significant. We've got to do that. So if we have nothing else on that, thank you, Mark. I appreciate the presentation.
One addition.
Oh, yes, Dr. Pickle.
We haven't had a chance to brief Mark on some significant studies we've done on cost benchmarking and on total compensation, and we hope to update him in the near future on that because we think he will find some of it useful.
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. I did take a note of that too as I was looking at, Mark, your interactions within the department. A significant amount of time needs, from my perspective, to be spent with the Ratepayer Advocate's Office. There is a wealth of information and feedback, I think, that will be very beneficial, particularly in this area of IT and personnel hiring. So please make sure you add that to your list of things to do rather immediately. Any commissioners with any comments before we move on?
I have one, hopefully last comment to wrap the bow around this presentation, is to really think about the future of work. Because as we're talking about personal hiring, as we're talking about the different improvements in our IT, we have to really look at the way how IT delivers our user services, providing those enhanced user experiences and consistent performance across our work locations and the devices that employees use. So think about it when we look at all of these programs and projects that we have.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Susanna. That's a very, very critical and timely comment. So thank you for that. All right, we will now move to our next presentation. That's from our retirement plan, and I'm super excited to have the president of that board, LaTanya Bogan, joining our meeting and providing support to this presentation, along with our retirement plan manager, who we've not seen at board for a very long time, Linda Lee. And I simply wanted to indicate that we are seeing this presentation for a number of reasons, not the least of which being the critical role and importance of our retirement plan to our workforce, both our current workforce and certainly those retirees who have been part of the active JWP family. In addition to its sort of importance as a tool to support retirees, I also want to underscore the criticality of our plan in the context of recruiting people to the department. It has always been one of our significant competitive advantages and remains so. So with that, I will turn the floor over to, and then finally, just because of its importance, obviously, this board does have a role to play in ensuring that it is well supported within the department. You'll learn that unlike some of the other city systems, the retirement plan exists within the Department of Water and Power. It sort of has a very unique status here. So it is something that we do need to be cognizant of and to make sure that it is properly supported. So with that, Linda, LaTanya, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioner. She did such a great presentation. I think she did pretty much the whole thing for us, but I'll still go through the slides with you. Here we go. Let me share my screen. So the Commissioner asked us to do a presentation on the Water and Power's Employees Retirement Plan, and specifically she asked us to address 4 topics: governance, Board of Commissioners' role, plan performance, and also salary parity. So there's a lot of things for us to cover, so I'm going to get going. Governance, when I talk about governance, I have to look at 2 sides. So 1 is the legal requirements, and then 2 is the plan structure. And so under the legal requirements, the retirement boards are created under the California Constitution, and it gives the retirement boards 2 responsibilities over the assets and the delivery of benefits. So the retirement boards have the sole and exclusive responsibility over both of those areas. Then underneath the California Constitution, you have the city charter, which reiterates those duties, but it also goes a step further. It created the retirement system and also the retirement board. And in the city of Los Angeles, we have 3 retirement systems. So Water and Power, and then there's the city one, which is LACERS, and the Fire and Police, which is LADWP. So you'll hear me refer to them often during the presentation. Unlike LACERS and Fire and Police, like the Commissioner talked about, LACERS and Fire and Police are created as their own separate department. Water and Power was created as a system within the Department of Water and Power. So that creates some challenges for us, but not insurmountable challenges, but I'll talk about them later on in slides. Then later down below the charter is the Water and Power's document itself, which provides all the plan benefits that we administer. All the language in the plan document are approved by this board. Any changes to that plan document has to be approved by this board. Going on, the governance. So what is in the plan document that you approve for this board to have? What authority did you give us? So 1 is the authority to appoint employees of the department, of the retirement plan, and also to pay compensation. Here and determine all questions of facts as it pertains to the benefit that we administer. Invest all the monies in the retirement, disability, and death benefit funds. So those are the 3 benefits that we administer. But we also invest in retiree health benefit funds, which was added to our plan about maybe 10 years ago. And then, of course, payment from the 3 funds, retirement, death, and disability. I also said when we're looking at governance, we want to look at reporting structure. So in a traditional retirement system, which is like LACERS, Fire and Police, CalSTRS, CalPERS, all of those, a retirement system reports directly to a retirement board. In our system, the DWP one, we report to a retirement board, but the retirement office also reports to the general manager of the department because we're a division in the department. The general manager is one of the retirement board members, so he's one of the 7 votes on the retirement board. Who else are board members? We have 7 members. 3 are elected from the Power, Water, and Joint System. 1 is the chief accounting employee who's appointed by this board. A retiree representative appointed also by your board. Then, of course, the general manager and 1 of the Water and Power commissioners. And President McCLAIN-HILL is on our board. So there are 2 voting members on the retirement board who are in my direct line of supervision. So it causes some challenges to administration, but we've carved out a niche for ourselves in this very unique space that we occupy. And this is important for me to note because I have to ensure to our employees and to our members that the benefit that we administer has integrity, so that I'm administering the benefit to their best interest, and that the money that we hold in trust for them are safeguarded from any commingling with DWP funds. Those are separate trust funds that cannot be touched by DWP. So how do we do this? So we operate basically as a quasi-department sometimes, I call it. Sometimes it's a mini department within the bigger department. And so we have our own systems accounts, our own financial statements. Like I said, 3 separate trust funds that we manage that doesn't not get commingled with DWP funds. I have my own accounting section, so we go through our own audit process. We have our own pension administration system. Mark talked earlier about the ERP. this is our ERP. We implemented this 13 years ago. It maintains all the retirement information system, and it does all the calculation payments for us. We have our own website, our own internal IT staff. We have signature authority over all of our contracts. We negotiate all of our contracts that are approved by the retirement board. So we don't go through the DWP board for our contracts. We have our own employee records. So these are, I call member records. And so we don't use the department HR record. We have our own set of records, which may have will have your beneficiary form for sure, may have your divorce certificate, divorce matters, legal divorce filings, birth certificates, a bunch of things that are particular to your plan benefits, including disability forms, like why were you out sick? And so these records are completely separate from the department, and the department is not privy to them. Our retirement board approves our budget, sets our APR for us, and we include that with the department's budget, but it's completely approved by our board. So we do a lot of other things that establishes us as an independent quasi-department, where we have our own travel, our own letterhead, logos, so a bunch of other things that you would consider to be a department. What authority do we not have, though? We don't have the authority to appoint employees of the plan, and we don't have the authority to establish compensation for these employees. And you're probably wondering in your head why I just told you a few slides ago that under the authority of the plan that was provided to us by the Board of Water Power Commissioners, we have the authority to appoint employees and also to pay compensations. So that's one of the disconnect. We are, because of division within the department, under the administrative code, the general manager is actually our appointing authority and not the retirement board, even though the DWP Board of Commissioners gave us that authority. Also under the California Constitution and the city charter, we have the sole and exclusive responsibility over the assets and the benefits. So one of the questions that commonly comes up is, how do you administer your benefits if you don't have any right to select your employees or set compensation for them? So those are challenges. They're not insurmountable. They are challenges that we have always faced as a plan, but we're very successful in managing the plan still despite that. And as I'm going to show you in some of the later slides, you're going to see how good a job we do as a plan, as a system. So moving on to topic number 2, Board of Commissioners role. As I stated, Commissioner McCLAIN-HILL is a voting member on our board. You also appoint the chief accounting employee and a retiree representative to our board. Because you approve all plan amendments, that means you negotiate and approve all benefits that are administered by the plan. So all the languages in the plan that I told you earlier, you approve those language. If we change them, you have to approve them. So that means you approve all the benefits. Because we have a plan benefit, you're also the plan sponsor. So you approve those plan benefits, so you have to now pay for those benefits. So you're also the plan sponsor, and that's a very a critical role that you provide for the plan. Moving on to the third topic, performance. So I was talking about funding for the plan. There are 3 sources of funding for the plan: employer, employee, and investment. I'm going to touch first on employee, because that's basically whatever's negotiated. When we negotiate with our labor unions on employee contracts, that determines how much I, as an employee, have to contribute to the plan. Investment then is now equal to how well I do my job, how well my investment staff do their job. And so the more money we bring in from investment, the less the employer has to make up. So this pie that I show you on the right-hand side, it's always a whole pie. So somebody has to make up that pie. And so whatever we don't bring in the green, the red is going to make up. The blue is set by contract negotiation. So this is a 10-year look. And over the 10-year, employees brought in about 7%, investment 62%, DWP about 31%. So the better I am at my job, the less the red is. The worse I am at my job, the greater the red is going to be. And that, of course, then impacts your ability to do the capital improvements, the O&M projects, the hirings that you need to do. But how well did we actually do in investment returns? So this is a 6-year look at our investment returns. And what I want you to focus on here is that dotted black line. It's an important line for us because as an institutional investor, we're not looking at years. Even though I'm really proud of what we did this last fiscal year, we look at the long-term impact of the investment to cover our liabilities. And so the assumed rate of return is 7%. You see several of those years we beat it by, this last year alone, we beat it by, what, 19%? So some years we did great, a few years we did a little less than what the assumed rate of return is. That said, I'm going to show you in a slide, a later slide, why you don't need to worry too much about that. There is a correction I need to make on the slide. We're currently at $20.2 billion and not 21, so that's a typo on my part. One thing I do want you to focus on, $4 billion. That is in one fiscal year, we brought in $4 billion in assets to the plan. So I don't know any other division in the department that brought $4 billion to the DWP, but that's what we did this last year. And that's based on the retirement board's investment strategies and the decisions they make. So you may sit there and go, Linda, there's 3 years where you were under the assumed rate of return. This last fiscal year, even though it's 26.8, you're still below LACERS, you're still below fire and police. They're at 29% and 31%. Why don't you do better? This next slide is the risk and returns profile of the plan. And so this is not an investment presentation, but I wanted to show this so you understand why that is not such a big concern to me. The red line is the median in which we exist. So it's the median of pension plans in the pension plan universe. So a good pension plan wants to be in the top left-hand quadrant of its chart. So the higher you up in the chart, the better your returns. The more to the left you are on this chart, the less risky your investment profile is. And so if you look on here, number one, where we land in the chart, we all landed in the top quadrant. So all three plans are in a good position. Water and power, our annualized 10-year return is at about 8.75, I want to say. That's higher than that 7% I showed you earlier. So that's one takeaway from this chart. So we're over the 10 years doing better than what we thought over the long-term investment return of the plan. The second thing I really want you to look at is when you compare us to LACERS, we have comparable returns, but with a lot less risk. So that's a much better portfolio. Then when you look at us compared to fire and police, we have a lot less return, but we also have a lot less risk. So that becomes a question for the retirement board. Do they want to assume greater risk in order to chase a higher return? And should they? So this next slide is the funded ratio. And what the funded ratio shows us is the amount of the amount of assets to cover the liability that the plan has. At 100% funded ratio, that's the unicorn. I call it the unicorn because I don't know any plan that has it. In a defined contribution plan where it's money in, money out, then you get the unicorn, you get the 100% funding. At 92.3% for a defined benefit plan where it's about the formula that you promised, this is one of the best funded ratios in the entire United States. For sure, it's the best funded ratio in the city. And so when we have this higher funded ratio, should the retirement board take on additional risk? It's a retirement board decision, but I would recommend no.
Linda, can I pause you there for a second? You were talking about medians and quartiles previously. What is the national? No, stay on the slide you're on. What is the median for funded ratios and what is the top quartile?
The median, I would say, is somewhere around the low 80s right now. Top quartile, we have to be in there. I don't have that exact number, but I can look it up and provide it to you after this. But 92% has to be in the top quartile. I would be shocked if we weren't. What I was saying, so with LACERS being at 66.3%, that's why you see the risk profile that they have. They need to chase those returns in order to get their funded ratio up to 100%. But Commissioner, I will get back to you on the quartile. I believe it's at the low 80 right now is the median. Performance is not, though, when you're administering a benefits plan, performance is just not about the investment returns. So investment funds the benefits, but performance is also about the way we administer the plan, because the decisions we make as the plan administrators determines that funding ratio. So these implementation of like tier 2 adoption of new mortality tables with our labor partners and the DWP board, those go towards the funded ratio. It helps us in the long run of the plan because it's lowering the benefit that's paying out. And also it's saving the department millions and millions of dollars per year, not just one time, per year.
And that funded ratio is for death and disability too, or is that just for the retirement?
It's just for the retirement. And so we don't have a disability is a pay-as-you-go plan. The death benefit was a pay-as-you-go plan until 2 years ago. So now the department is starting the process of pre-funding, paying it like we're paying the retirement. So that funding ratio is actually lower. It's hard for me to compare death and disability funding to other plans because no other plan has death and disability like we do. When you hear retirement plans with the disability retirement, it's not our disability retirement. It's not, we don't have disability retirement. What we have is a temporary disability benefit. When other plans have death benefit, it's no way in comparison to what our death benefit provides. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So when it comes to administration, how do we serve our customers? I mean, the real reason why we're here is for the benefits. So how do we serve our customer? As I said, pension administration system, that's the department's ERP. That's our system that we put in to manage our data. We put it in about 13 years ago. We're in the process of implementing Oracle 19C on it. That will ensure the longevity of this program for the next 5 years, if not longer. And then it will allow me to start working on how do we move into that next thing that Mark's talking about? Do we move into the cloud? What do we do with our next system? I'm retiring in 6 years. So I want to position the plan in such a way that we have a new system before I retire, that we have the employees in place before I retire so that they can carry on the work that we do. Our retirement information system, I am proud to say, and just like Mark, this is my own IT staff, not the department's IT staff. This is my own IT staff. They created this in-house, and this is a twofold payment. On the one hand, it creates greater transparency for our employees because now they can go in and look at their own information. They can go in and run their calculations and estimates and know, so they can have a better planning tool for when they want to retire. For us, because we have a very small staff and inundated with payroll systems, we have 3 separate payrolls that we maintain. So we're inundated with work all the time, and so we're prioritizing the work on the payroll. And so estimates for us are low priority. We were seeing on a year and a half work backlog of estimate requests. And so this is us working smarter and more efficient. And so I'm really proud of that system. Tax qualification. Tax qualification just means that the IRS treats us as a tax qualified plan. And this is really important because if I don't implement those rules, and we implemented several rules within the last few years that maintain our tax qualification, if we lose that, for a $20 billion plan and a $4 billion increase in assets this past year, can you just imagine the amount of taxes we would have to pay in that money? That's huge savings for the plan and the department. So maintaining our tax qualification is very important to us. Electronic file retention. This is our employee files. We digitized it several years ago, so we don't have the hard paper files anymore. And this was really a matter of luck because when COVID came around and we had to work remotely, it saved us, ensured that we were able to still continue to pay the benefits because now we can access the file from home instead of hard paper files walking out of here and possibly losing divorce orders, birth certificates, a variety of documents that we hold in your files. And then moving on to the last topic that you requested that I cover is salary parity. When I look at salary parity, though, I think it's only fair that we look at also the parity of the work. And so this is the comparison of all 3 of the pension plans. So for the most part, very comparable. Assets were about 2/3 of what Fire and Police is. We're right on par with LACERS. Again, the typo is just be $20.2 billion. I want to move you down to the red part, the benefits and trust fund. We manage 4 trust funds. LACERS and Fire Police have 2. For the retiree health, we only invested, so we don't actually pay out that benefit. Our department, HR does. But death and disability requires a whole new set of knowledge and rules that we have to follow. For death benefit, I have to know probate rule. I have to know how to apply it when we're doing when we're paying out benefits. So what this shows me right there is, if nothing else, we are much more complex than the other 2 sister plans. Then when I move down to the last row in this page, the administrative costs. Our administrative expense is about 1/3 of the city's administrative expense. And you say maybe that's a function of they have more members and so we have less members, so that's why it comes out that way. But then when you look at a cost per member, we're about half the cost of Fire and Police, 2/3 of the cost of LACERS. So not only are we the most complex plan, we are the most efficient plan at administering our benefits. And so is there a trade-off for that efficiency? Do we skimp and save somewhere else where we don't provide as much customer service. So this next slide, as I said, we have three benefits, which makes us more extremely complex. But unlike LACERS and Fire and Police, everything we do is in-house. All of our administration and operation is handled in-house. Our payroll processing, our tax reporting is all done by our internal staff of 69. Fire and Police and LACERS have over 100 plus employees, but they farm out some of their work to third-party administrators. This speaks to the work ethic my staff has, but also to the customer service that we provide. When we're the one that's touching the work product, it ensures that we know what we're talking about when we talk to our customers. All of our IT development, support, and hosting, our website. We're updating our website right now and putting a new website up, all done in-house by our internal IT staff. So last bullet on here, excellence of service. I stress and stress and stress this to my staff, and they truly, I have a very unique team in that they truly believe in the work that they do, and they are here because they want to help people. And so they go out of their way to make sure that everybody is trained who wants to be trained on plan benefits, everybody who is curious or wants to know or has questions, that they know what they're entitled to. And on top of that, they want to make sure that they do it right and do it fast, because the last thing you need to do is wait for your payment or worry about having to reimburse us because we did it wrong. And so I just want to touch on one of our employees is a death benefit counselor who's been on his desk for over 10 years. So if you can think of that personality that it takes to be on that desk for 10 years, you're dealing with grieving people, widows, and family members after one of our plan members have died. And you're talking to them about numbers and benefits and stuff like that. And so it takes a very unique personality to be able to handle that. But he is so good at his job, and the whole death benefit group is so good at their job. We process all of our death benefit within, on average, 12 weeks. If you've ever gone through like an insurance payment for death benefit, you know it's upwards of 6 months or plus. Our death benefit are processed in 12 weeks because we know somebody's waiting for that money and they need it, and it's their money. And when I say earlier that our death benefit is not something inconsequential, when you have an active death benefit, you're talking about $500,000 in payment that we pay out. So it's a substantial amount that we pay. Disability, we pay out about 300 to 500 employees on a biweekly basis. So it's not inconsequential, these benefits that we're administering. So to get to the real topic you want me to talk about with salary parity, this is a comparison of us to the city plans. So even though we're more complex and more efficient, at this level that I show you on the chart, we're less paid than our city counterparts. I hope you can see the numbers. There's a lot of details in here. I didn't show you the lower level because at the lowest level, the entry level, the clerical, the admin series, so the lower level, all of our staff makes more than their city counterpart. That's normal. That's normal with DWP in the city. But once we get into the plan and then you get into these higher level positions, we make less than our city counterparts. So if you look like my salary, I make $227. The GM at the city plans make $304. CIO.
So, I'm sorry, can you just clarify me? This is versus LACERS, so it's not versus the fire department. Fire and police.
It's actually versus both because they're both very similar.
Well, which one? It's one or the other, right? So which one is it?
Because they're the exact same number, I use them for both.
Okay, so both the retirement plan managers at for LACERS and for the fire and police have this salary.
The salary for the GM at LACERS is about $298. It's very similar to this. The GM at fire and police is $304. That's the top step. What they're actually getting, I don't really know. I don't get into that. But when you look at all of these other salaries,
Wait, I'm sorry, I still don't understand. So that's the target, but that's not their actual.
That's their top step in which they could get paid.
The top step, so that's the most they could get paid.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand what you're showing here. So you're showing actual DWP salaries versus the most of what others could make.
So it's also the top step of what we're making. So because in the civil service system, when you have 5 steps, eventually you're going to get to the 5th step. Not all of these positions are civil service. Some are exempt, so it's not apples to apples. But when it's civil service, you will get to the top step. So I didn't differentiate between those two. So let me just show you the Chief Investment Officer. That's actually a civil service classification.
Cynthia, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I think that the point to be made is that you are not depicting any individual specific salary. What you're talking about are the budgeted or the steps, the top steps with respect to each of these salary positions. And you're comparing our top step to their top step. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So when I talked about some of these positions, like the Chief Investment Officer position, that is a civil service classification on our side, is also a civil service classification on at the city side. The top step for our classification, even though the exact same classification, so at least on my position, you can say it's a retirement plan manager versus a general manager. For the Chief Investment Officer, you're looking at a Chief Investment Officer class to a Chief Investment Officer class. So the salary over here is $215. In the city, it's $276. Why that is, I don't know. I can't provide that answer.
Okay, wait, but something else you just said confused me. So the retirement plan managers of the other two plans are defined as general managers?
That is their classification. They're called general managers of fire and police or general managers of lasers, whereas with our plan, it's called retirement plan manager.
Okay.
Yeah, that goes back to that distinction between those systems being set up as independent entities or departments, and the retirement plan here not being set up as an independent department, although operating as if it is. So you can only have one general manager, and our general manager, obviously, for DWP would be Marty, whereas the city's plan and the firefighter police plan, there isn't anyone other than their plan manager is their general manager. So it's the functional equivalent, but because of the way the plans were set up, there's a distinction in what they are considered or how they're defined.
Right, and Commissioner McCLAIN-HILL is exactly on board. So what it is there's not always a one-to-one job class equal on both sides. But when we look at functionally, I'm comparing function to function, and that's where these comparisons come from. So I'm going to take, for example, a really easy one, the accounting manager. Here at DWP, we call them principal utility accountant. Over in the city, they're called deputy chief accountant. And so function-wise, it's the same position, but over here, we use a different classification. So that's going to exist throughout the system itself. So that's the comparison against the city. What I'm going to show next is maybe you say, you know, this weird animal that we are, a unique space that we're in, maybe because we're a division within the DWP, and so we're treated differently. And so when I go and look at all the director levels at DWP, which is what I am, I'm a director of the retirement plan office, I'm the lowest paid director in the entire department. And that said, after I told you we manage basically an independent department, we have $20 billion in assets, which, mind you, I don't think most divisions' budgets are even that close. We brought in $4 billion in assets in this last fiscal year, and I don't know of any division who brought in $4 billion to the department. And of course, we maintained that level of service that we did throughout the COVID. And again, here, not depicting anybody's actual salary. Here is more apples to apples, Commissioner NEEMAN Brady, because these are all civil service classifications. So when you talking about civil service classification, the fifth step is everybody will get to the fifth step eventually if you work long enough. So there's not you're stuck on the third step, like an exempt position would be stuck on a third step for years and years and years. Hope did that make sense? Okay. So I don't want to bring the problem to you without bringing the solution to you. So what this is a blueprint for restructuring if you choose to address the issue. Completely out of my pay grade, but I just brought you if you wanted to address it, all of the blue box are boxes that I need your help in addressing. All the light box, the retirement board already saw this, and so they said, we want you to fix it now, Linda, we don't need you to wait. And so I'm already in the process of fixing the light blue box because those are within my authority. The white boxes, so here's an interesting fact, maybe this will help still the understanding. The white box on the left-hand side, labeled as trainee. So an investment officer one, and that's another typo, investment officer one in the city starts out at 147,000. An investor officer one here at DWP starts out at 165. So at the lowest level, at the entry level, at the clerical, at the administrative level, we start out higher, but once we get to the higher level at the DW, in the retirement system, we somehow become lower. I don't know why. The cost, if you were to fix all of this, would be an additional $21 per member, still the lowest cost of all three plans. And then, of course, there are, when you're looking at cost and benefit analysis, there's headline financial risk. So I talked about the investment earlier. If we're not able to bring that in and we don't make the administrative decision we do for the funded ratios, that causes financial risk to the department. If we don't make the payroll for the elderly disabled, those are headline risks that we have to worry about. So I have to make sure I have the ability to train the next level, next group of retirement professionals to take over when we retire. Just some final thoughts. Pension administration by itself, and this is across the board for all three plans and all pension plans. They're really complex and technical. We're dealing with a bunch of different laws that normally you wouldn't deal with as an admin manager. But on top of that, we have death and disability, which makes us that even more complex than the other two plans and most other pension plans that I know of. We have a high volume of work and hard deadlines because we're dealing with payroll. We have 3 distinct payroll systems, so I have to make sure that those payroll goes out on time no matter what and goes out accurately. So this requires a very unique skill set from our employees. I need analytical, detailed people who can self-motivate and self-do the work. But at the same time, because you're dealing with benefit, they have to empathize. They have to be able to communicate very complex information to the layman so that they can understand. They have to be able to talk to the widower after their loved ones passed away. They have to be patient. You're talking to elderly people. They may not understand us. And so you have to be patient, use different jargons, use different language. Some people aren't even English speaking, so we have to be able to communicate with them. So all of this was to talk about my retention, recruitment, and succession planning. But as we said earlier, I think in the IT presentation, it's also about the department's ability to do all this. How do you retain or recruit new employees if your pension plan is not secure? If your pension plan is at 66% funding, as a new employee, am I going to be willing to come here because the future that you promised me, is it going to be there? At 92% funding, I'm pretty secure that our plan is going to be here. And so I know that my retirement is going to be there when I'm ready to retire. And so that concludes my presentation. And I think President Bogan also had some additional comments. I don't see her on but I believe she's here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. I just wanted to say a few things. That was a great presentation, Linda. Good morning, or it's not morning anymore. Good afternoon, Board President and Commissioners. I just wanted to give a little about myself and my thoughts on the plan of the office. When I first started in the retirement board in 2013, our assets were $9.7 billion, and we had one tier of benefits. I was a young employee, didn't know much about retirement. Most of us don't think about retirement until we are retiring, grieving a loved one, or having an accident or an illness due to disability. Fast forward to 2021, our plan assets have more than doubled with 2 tiers of benefits, which is a huge accomplishment. But that's not the only thing I'm proud of as the president. I'm even more proud of our staff and the work that they do for our members in the department. These are some of the most dedicated, hardworking professionals in the whole department. They don't get a lot of credit, but they continue to do the work. Prior to today, I'm pretty sure no one heard that the plan assets grew by $4 billion. That's billions with a B, last fiscal year. But the funds to pay the benefits are one thing. To me, the real measure of success is our customer service we provide. Our staff takes pride in making sure information is accessible, easy to find, and the data is secure. The Retirement Information System is the most popular app used in the department. Most employees use it to estimate their retirement. And to know that that was developed in-house by our IT makes me proud of the work that we do. But more than that, we're always looking for ways to provide better customer service. During the last year and a half, while we struggled with the pandemic, this group didn't miss a beat. They embraced remote working while continuing to deliver benefits and provide that extra support that some families needed as they dealt with a sick or dying loved one. It's that spirit of helping others and being responsible administrators that make me the most proud to be the retirement board president. We have a lot of work to do in this office. Things need to be corrected, and we need to make things right and fair. I am willing and dedicated to see those things through. And that's it. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members at this juncture?
Yes. But Jill can go ahead first. Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you. I just want to be clear, Linda, that at no time during your setting the rates, do you meet with the labor union? And that's not part of their, they don't contribute any thought or input as to what the rates should be?
I apologize, ma'am. I'm not sure what rate you're referring to.
Well, any of these rates, you said that you don't confer with the labor union. That would be IBEW. And I'm wondering if there's any time that, is there any of this where that is an issue with IBEW?
Let me take a stab at that. So first, one of the reasons, just to kind of recap part of the presentation, if you just go back to the governance, this board, our board appoints 3 members to the 7-member board of the retirement plan. In addition, Marty serves as a 4th member of that 7-member board. IBEW has 3 elected members to the board. So just the overall governance, the board is made up of 3 elected members from IBEW, an appointed retiree member, a board of commissioner member, and our chief accounting officer, which is a department employee that's appointed by this board, and Marty, the general manager. So the governance of the plan represents all of the stakeholders involved in the retirement system. So that is through that mechanism, I would say that IBEW does have a voice at the, a voice at the table in the context of the management of the plan.
Thank you. That's very helpful because that's what I wanted to know, whether they had a voice at the table. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it's really that I think that the thing that has struck me as a member of the board, all that Linda and LaTanya represented about the professionalism of its staff, the complexity of the work, the constant, frankly, effort to be responsive to retirees is something that is ongoing. The difficulty, or not the difficulty, the thing that struck me was the anomaly or the differences between, the way in which similarly situated workers within the city of Los Angeles are being paid, that are managing retirements, those retirement plans, and the ways that our folks are being paid, which is also resulting in pretty serious salary compression. When you don't have enough room at the top on a salary basis, you've got some real anomalies occurring there. There's just an overall overhaul that needs to take place from a staffing perspective, some of which can be done by the retirement board, but some of which cannot, some of which can only be done at the leave of the department. And this isn't something that comes to the department as to our board as a general matter, because when we're dealing with budgets and things of that nature, we're dealing with the department with, we don't look at and have never gotten a presentation on what's happening at the retirement system, which is how this has persisted for so very long. I know that, Marty, you are currently engaged in efforts to address some of these issues. I just wanted to highlight both the significance of them and the importance, given the tremendous asset and the tremendous trust there is related to our retirement plan. Both, as a fiduciary in terms of the trust our employees pay, we pay, the fact that it is well managed and is delivering is critically important to us. As a recruitment tool, it remains critically important to us. And for those of us in private sector, it's the entire public sector space. And this is one of those places where the public sector space is almost unimaginable. This is rarely replicated in the private sector, but it is what is a huge attraction and competitive advantage that the public sector has. So safeguarding it is very, very, very critical. And it is equally important that our board realize that we have a stake in the ongoing performance, a significant stake in the ongoing performance of the system, in its management, in its efficiency, in its ability to attract talent. And so that is why, for me, this is a very critical presentation. I know, Nicole, that you had at least one additional question, maybe more than one. So I will stop talking and yield to you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So, given I work in the investment space, there's a lot I could comment on here. Clearly, pay parity is an important thing. But in isolation, it is not an appropriate thing to do. Mm-hmm. You have pay parity when factoring in a whole bunch of other things, and I appreciate, Linda, the conveying of how much you do, how you do it in a cost-effective manner. What you presented was very thoughtful and demonstrated your point. At the same time, there were a lot of things that I felt like were missing because there's the performance component, and it's unclear to me. I mean, clearly anybody these days should be doing well in the market. So the fact that the portfolio has appreciated, shouldn't be a shocker. The relative appreciation is harder to discern and what the triggers are. For me, I'd be curious to know with the fire and police board, are they paying more on consulting fees? How the consultants were selected? How much are you weighing in there? CIO to CIO, what are their backgrounds? How much are they very actually similar roles, or does one have less power or the other, or influence? Those types of questions, are on my mind. That said, overall, the top levels should have the same target, whether their people are advanced to them. I think is a different question. And I haven't gotten the evidence to support that those salaries should be adjusted to those levels, but at least the parity argument, just on the general targets is where I think I fall. And I think it sounds like everyone does as well. So long-winded way of saying I appreciate the statements you're making. I'm very supportive of having a robust and healthy retirement plan. It is necessary. Glad to see how well-funded it is. That is fantastic. I generally am supportive of a little bit more risk for that performance reward. And at some point, I would appreciate an update on how the actual investment allocation is and the roles that people play in that component in order to justify increases to salaries.
Okay, may I address that now?
Absolutely.
So one of the things I do want to address is when we show that return, the return numbers for the last 6 years, those are net of fees. And so we already took into account how much the fees affect the returns themselves. We are one of the most competitive fee-wise. Our staff takes a very active role in negotiating down those fees. And where we can, we use an economy scale. So meaning that if Lasers is going to contract with that, then with that company also, we also go in there and say we get that same pricing or better. So we're very competitive as far as fees concerned. As far as the CIOs are concerned, we do have 3 consultants on the plan, assisting the plan with our investment strategies. But our CIO and our investment staff take a very active role in reviewing, doing due diligence on all the firms we select, and also making recommendations to the board. We go through an RFP process where there's an independent process from both staff and the outside contractor in reviewing all the contracts that we bring up to the retirement board to review. And so if you would like a lot more details, we would love to sit down with you and go over our investment portfolio and our strategies. And we have a lot of information out there, and I don't want to waste everybody's time to go over it with you, but we'd love to share that information with you.
Great. That sounds like a good next step. Additionally, understanding why the police and fire pension plans costs are so much more per employee would also be an interesting thing to learn, so that we understand what the root cause is there and why. Because perhaps they're paying for a whole bunch of other things that we don't know about. The only other thing I would say is, as I take a step back and think about the city of LA, it strikes me as peculiar that there are city employees with different plans. And I know there's a whole legacy to that, and we don't have to get into it. But I will say there's got to be ways that, and it sounds like you're already doing it, because if Lasers gets a favorable rate on something, you're able to get that rate as well. But there's got to be ways to work more collaboratively on the investment programs, because they shouldn't be wildly disparate. These are city employees that are all, we're trying to provide for generally. So I encourage more collaboration across the other retirement boards to the extent possible.
Noted, and we do. We try to collaborate a lot with them. With 3 separate boards, with 3 separate risk profiles, we cannot, of course, mirror our investment across all 3 plans the same. And so taking that into account, we then, where we can cross over, we do collaborate with them. As far as attorneys, looking at the terms of the contracts, and of course, like I said, the fees. But yes, that's noted, what you said.
Yeah, and just an interesting observation on that front, as Linda indicated, I do sit on that board. I would say from a risk perspective, that risk-reward balance, also contextualized by the level of unfunded liability, or the near absence of unfunded liability, or the fact that the pension fund is almost fully funded. You do have a very, very cautious or conservative mindset. You're dealing, if you again think about the composition of that board, you're dealing with a whole lot of folks who have a very vested stake in the outcomes, and as a result, they are really sensitive to risk, with an eye always on making sure that they're not risking or jeopardizing the amount that 90+ percentile funding level. And I think the other piece that's also they keep a very close eye on is there's the department contribution, and there's a great deal of sensitivity to balancing investment versus department contribution, and keeping those things, relatively keeping a good tension and a good balance there. So it's an interesting board, and it might make sense for us to have regular, maybe biannual reports, certainly an annual report from the retirement board, given its importance to the department, the significance of the department's partnership or the unique level of control the department has over how the plan operates. We should know more and be much more attentive to its structure and its health, both as it relates to its portfolio and also as it relates to its operations. So with that, if there are no other questions, Marty, I'm hopeful that and would expect at some point very soon that you'll be able to get back to us in the context of either the ongoing negotiations with MBA or other efforts at City Hall to address the issues of concern that the retirement board has raised, because they've been very concerned about this and the issues that Linda has identified. It will also, I think, Linda, be useful for you to have a follow-up conversation with Commissioner NEEMAN Brady. I know that there are probably a number of slices in terms of comparisons that, or some additional context that might be useful in order to more fully demonstrate the success that our internal team has had. And then frankly, the succession planning issue here is another that looms large. And we've got to address all of the structural issues from an operations perspective to make sure that we can engage in good succession planning as we move forward. Marty, did you have anything that you wanted to offer?
No, just I think we have some of our contract negotiation updates or a regular closed session items. So I'll be happy to brief the board about the status of that and how it pertains to this subject.
All right, thank you. Quite eloquent. Then with that, I think we only have a few outstanding items before going to closed session. So I think we'll try to wrap those up and then take a break on our way to closed session. With respect to agenda item J, the filed items, we have are there any questions or comments related to the report on water quality compliance?
No.
Okay, terrific. Then we have the June 22nd regular meeting of the board minutes for approval. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you call the roll?
President McCLAIN-HILL.
Aye.
Vice President Reyes.
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Lair.
Aye.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Okay, terrific. So what we'll do now is we have item 7, which was called special. And then, so we'll take that up, after which time I will leave the meeting to the capable hands of our Vice President. The board can take up item 14 and then we can recess into closed session. And I will see everybody in closed session. Item 7, that was called special. Is that by Commissioner Berard Hopkins?
No, I pulled items 6, 9, 10, and 11.
Aye. Okay, well, 6, 9, 10, and 11 were actually, I didn't get the note on that. And so those items have been passed. They've been voted on and approved. However, did you have questions on 6, 9, 10, or 11 that might be addressed at this time?
Yes, I had questions.
Okay, terrific. Then on item 6, your questions were?
Okay.
Well, wait a minute. I'm sorry, Jill. Before we do that, is there another commissioner that pulled item 7?
No.
Okay. Then at this time, I'd like to move to adopt item 7.
I did pull it. I'm sorry, I was struggling with my mute button.
Oh, okay, terrific. then why don't we get a presentation on item 7?
Hi, this
Susanna, did you have a question? Did you have questions or did you have a presentation for item 7?
Yeah, we have a presentation prepared if you'd like it, or we can answer questions.
In the interest of time, I just want to ask questions at this point. I don't know if others are familiar with the FUSE program, which I believe some of us are not. And that's really the core of my question is what is the scope of work for that? Because it's not as clear as with the documents. And the second question I have is if we are, amending the contract for that executive fellow that will end next year, more than a year, right? For the extension.
Yes.
What are we doing in terms of succession planning and knowledge transfer? Because that work is really a capacity work that our own internal folks can be doing within DWP. What are we doing to transfer that knowledge?
Okay, so maybe I'll start on a couple of things and then George can go into more detail on the scope of work. So just for background, FUSE is a nonprofit that works with local government primarily and provides sort of mid-career to sort of late career fellows who can come in and help out on specific projects. So the city of Los Angeles has had an agreement with the FUSE Corps for at least 2 or 3 years, or maybe longer than that, and they've provided fellows for a number of city departments, including the mayor's office, who've worked on some specific projects. And so I think we found it very helpful. I know other departments have access to sort of mid-career folks to help on specific projects. And so it's a follow-on. We're following on to a city contract, so the sort of that contract terms are sort of standard for that particular contract. And then in terms of some of the succession planning, it's a very good question. And we're talking to Marty a little bit, and we'll talk more with him and with Monique Earl about how we kind of make sure we've got all of these issues covered in the future now that she's on board. So George, do you want to go into a little more detail about the assignments that the fellow is working on?
Sure.
Work on for the next year.
Sure. Primarily, the assistance that we're looking for the fellow to be assisting with is just around providing our programs and services and ensuring that they're aligned with our low income and customers that need financial assistance and better managing their energy and water use. So we have a lot of programs. There's many that are in development, but the key is ensuring that they're aligned and are meeting those needs of those customer segments. And the second fold is then their awareness of it and ease in being able to participate. So with that, there's a lot of as we're developing things like level pay, payment arrangements that are extended, relaunching and kind of promoting our energy and conservation or efficiency and conservation programs, is how to best get the message. What are those elements of the programs that have been obstacles in the past that we can, streamline and improve going forward? And that's a lot of that is based on feedback, not only directly from the customer, which we try to get through surveys and so on, and engaging with them, but also through community organizations, nonprofits, state and local agencies that are also providing services and engaging with the customers. So we're really just trying to utilize this position to get that alignment and to figure out how to be able to take it to that next step where we're increasing participation and truly providing value to customers to continue to be able to continue with their water and electric services.
So in terms of alignment, George, say for example, for the debt relief, which is connected to your outreach and for this specific program for this executive fellow, what does that look like? Because we work a lot with Repower LA, and I haven't seen any on the scope of work where there has been any outreach or intentional planning, or even with our internal divisions that are working on that. And I know you're one of the key ones for that. So how is that looking in terms of alignment? Because we have so many moving parts, and I just don't want it to fall through the cracks that we did not consult with this entity. We forgot. Oh, by the way, we already had our meetings. We're moving forward with this, but oh, by the way, we have no connection with it. So I just want this comprehensive look if this fellow is going to work on those programs, that fellow is embedded in the entirety of what our program is looking like for our low-income folks.
No, definitely. The fellow is currently having weekly meetings and check-ins with several of the CBOs, also leading our effort with the U.S. Water Alliance, which involves Scope and a couple of other agencies, to look at water severance and water affordability as a whole. So definitely looking to further engage. We're also working with our efficiency grantees, which has, I'm sorry, I forgot the number of community organizations that have grants through there. But we're definitely trying to engage and have that dialogue, and really not just a dialogue, but really a collaboration in how we approach this. And in terms of the debt relief, obviously the last couple of months have been really focused on the state relief funds, but now as that's kind of, past a milestone of the surveys and potential understanding of the amounts, we're now looking at what additional elements that we can provide around that, how to help customers manage their bills, what other options that we could potentially propose for consideration. So we've looked at a lot of other cities and states as to what they've done in terms of relief management, relief opportunities, to see what we could, potentially be able to offer here. So I completely agree.
I just want to say, I've met this fellow, and so quite impressive individual. That said, I do share Commissioner Reyes's concerns, and want to echo her concern about a fragmented approach that is not centralized. Because while I know that all of these conversations happen, I'm always looking for, well, what is the result? Where's the output? And I continue to have difficulty finding any output. And I cannot tell you how much I know that CBOs and folks in communities that are active and engaged really resent the consultation without solution, or the kind of where the outreach and the engagement is the point without there being an actual deliverable that is responsive to whatever the issues are that we say we're trying to address. And given the level of focus that this board has on these issues, it continues to be surprising to me that all of these conversations are taking place and we don't know anything about them and don't hear about them, and and they're not even coordinated with the work that we're doing. So I look forward to seeing a lot of change moving forward, and would imagine that a lot of this work will begin to be overseen in Monique's area, and that perhaps that will bring more focus as opposed to it being scattered across the department.
Yes, if I could just comment on that, that is exactly correct. So we have had a number of groups that do different levels of outreach and work. And so with Monique's creating a new Office of Economic Development and Community Engagement, we actually have a meeting being scheduled right now to gather all the people who are working in this space together, specifically to coordinate those efforts and to make sure that they're that we do have a coordinated approach, that we have deliverables, and we have a much more robust plan of attack, and that the board is engaged with that. So that is in process now, Monique being here, and we're working on setting that up, because there are different offices that have different roles, but they absolutely, as you say, need to be coordinated together to be effective.
Yeah, and I will be looking forward to understanding what the end game is with respect to all of the outreach and engagement. Like, what is the specific thing that we are seeking to have come out of it, and how this all aligns with our work around equity strategies as well. So some of this work is going to be more short-term, but it also needs to be connected to what we're doing long-term. But in every instance, there needs to be a purpose for this, for these conversations, and some way of measuring whether or not we achieve our objectives. Are there any additional questions on item 7?
None for me.
All right, then it is, 12:47. Jill, I know that you have questions on a number of items. Some of us have been sitting in our chair for nearly 3 hours. So what I'd like to do, unless Jill, your questions are very fast, it may be that we should take a break before embarking on a discussion of 4 additional items.
Prior to that, excuse me, President McCLAIN-HILL, did you want to vote on item 7?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, if there are no other questions, may we have a motion on item 7? Thank you, Jennifer.
I move approval on item 7.
I will second. Would you take the roll?
Yes, President McCLAIN-HILL.
Aye.
Vice President Reyes.
Aye.
Commissioner Broad-Hopkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Lair.
Aye.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Commissioner Broad-Hopkins, do you, are your questions brief, or do you think they'll take a minute?
Well, they're all linked together, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, then why don't we try and see what happens?
Okay. In reading the background material on item 6 and 9, 10, and 11, which all have to do with water, my question is, and I actually, we're in a crisis situation now with the drought. What I'd like to know is, are we recycling all the water that we can? Are we moving fast enough? And this is particularly because we're in a crisis situation. Because I don't see in reading all of this any urgency in moving anything forward.
All right, Anselmo, you can take up, if you could take up that question for Commissioner Berard, and to the extent that there is some relationship between the items that she has singled out for discussion and the efforts to accelerate as much as possible effective water management. I think that would be the best way to address that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, and Selma Collins. So Commissioner Broad-Hopkins, it's a great question, and the answer to the question is yes. We're doing as much recycling as we can right now. However, as you're probably aware, we have significant plans to increase even more the amount of water that we recycle on a yearly basis. We're looking to recycle water for a couple of purposes. One is for our groundwater augmentation in the San Fernando, Central, and West Coast basins. But we're also looking at the bigger goal, which is with Operation Next and the passage of regulations or rules for direct potable reuse, is to be able to recycle all the water from the Hyperion plant and be able to send a significant amount of that water to our LA Aqueduct filtration plant and be able to augment that water and be able to serve it to the community. So we do have plans in place that have been in motion for quite a while. We currently are recycling water. You know, areas like Playa Vista are currently getting recycled water, and other parts of the city. And all the water that's available currently to be recycled, we are recycling.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Berard, did you have additional questions or just concerns that you wanted to express?
Yeah, I just wonder if are we moving fast enough, do you think?
I do think we are moving fast enough, Commissioner. When it comes to water recycling, we made quite a bit of effort, and we're always looking to increase our recycle customers. Recently, we had deals with some refineries down in the harbor area. I think that when we talk about recycling for the purpose of direct potable reuse, we need to keep in mind that the regulations are not in place yet. Those are being developed. The expectation is it'll take another 2 years or so to finalize them. Once those are finalized, we will know exactly what kind of treatment train we're going to need to be able to meet those regulations and be able to use that water for direct potable reuse. But at this moment, we are doing everything that we can, and we're working as fast as we can when it comes to recycling.
All right. The other question I have is in terms of water quality. They said on the news last night, the national news, that that the water quality pollution throughout the United States still exists. And I wondered what you think is the tipping point, because it's not just Flint, Michigan anymore. It's other cities throughout the country. And right now, New Orleans, because of the hurricane. How is this related to LA? And do you see that there's a tipping point?
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is assure you that the water quality in the city of LA is excellent. We have a team of professionals that are responsible for treating that water. We actually test our water on a regular basis. We conduct thousands of samples that we test on a regular basis just to make sure the quality of the water in Los Angeles is great. Now, when we talk about contamination, I would say an area that we are focused on has to do with groundwater contamination. In the city of LA, and especially in the San Fernando Valley, many years ago, there was a lot of industry that unfortunately disposed of chemicals in a not so responsible manner. And consequently, there's been some contamination in our basins. However, we have been working on several projects to be able to remediate the groundwater basins. We currently have 2 projects underway that should be completing soon. In addition to that, we also have a couple more projects. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow us then to be able to not just clean the groundwater basin, but be able to take that water and use it for beneficial use. Our water meets all state and federal drinking water standards as well, Commissioner. So I would say that we have great water quality in LA.
Thank you for that, Anselmo. And Jill, I would also just direct your attention to the quarterly status report on water quality that is on today's agenda as well. So with that, we have completed our agenda with the exception of items 14. So I will be leaving the meeting. Susana will take over the chair and deal with item 14. And if you all just let me know what time closed session starts, I will see you all in closed session. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Commissioner Reyes, just for clarity, do we need to vote on these 2 items that we just discussed, or is that already done?
No, those items were already voted, so that was just questioning Anselmo. Sorry to interrupt, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
That's correct.
Thank you, Joe.
So the last item for discussion and approval by the board is item number 14. And that pertains to travel policy. There's a board resolution that is attached in our documents. And this is regarding the travel policy calling for certain travel by commissioners to have the prior approval of the board, and that our board president, CYNTHIA McCLAIN-HILL, has the opportunity to travel for department business, and that occurred in July 16 to 17, 2021, a travel to Flagstaff, Arizona. So we are here today to approve the resolution authorizing the travel of President McCLAIN-HILL for business.
So move.
I second. Can you please call the roll?
Yes. Vice President Reyes?
Aye.
Commissioner Broad Hopkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Lair?
Aye.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady?
Aye.
4 ayes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is that the adjournment of Board Secretary. We are now going into closed session. May we have the city attorney?
Yes, but before we do that, Commissioner, what time would you like to reconvene in closed session?
1:15.
1:15.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
At this point, we will recess into closed session to address the item number 15 and subparts on the agenda in accordance with Government Code California Section 54957.1. We will report any final actions taken therein. Commissioners, you have a separate call-in number for the closed session portion of the agenda. And with that, we are in recess until 1:15. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Please stand by.